Chapter 6 Devil's Bargain. Alec greeted me at the door when I returned from my short walk in a very stiff and formal voice informed me that Mr. and Mrs. Livingston wanted to see me immediately in the parlor. "Melanie, dear, where have you been?" Dorothy asked the moment I appeared. She was seated on the settee and Philip was sitting across from her in the thick-cushioned armchair, his posture regal. They looked like they had just been having a very serious conversation. "Philip told me that he saw you wandering aimlessly about Beverly Hills. Why don't you come right in and report to me about your second visit to the Egyptian whatever?" "I just wanted to be alone for a while," I said. I certainly wasn't going to say anything about Spike and the little drama in his apartment. I wasn't wandering about aimlessly. I knew what I was going. "Doesn't anyone just take a walk here? Why did they build sidewalks?" "You poor dear, come here this instant and give us the details about your visit," she insisted and patted on the seat beside her. Philip sat staring at me, his fingers pressed in the cathedral fashion, his beady dark eyes looking quite disapproving. I walked in slowly and sat, then I took a deep breath and began. "I met her," I said in a voice that even sounded like a voice of doom to me. "She pretended not to know me." Philip nodded and glanced sternly at Dorothy. "It's what I anticipated," he said, "even from the little I knew about this bizarre situation." "Dorothy, now hush, Philip. We'll solve the matter ourselves," she said, but he didn't look relieved. "This is not one of your social games, Dorothy. I told you what I thought when I first heard about this. We sympathize with your situation, Melanie," he said, directing himself toward me. "But we certainly are not equipped to solve the problem, as Dorothy implies. This sounds to me like more of a police matter. Someone is surely defrauding someone here," he continued. "Perhaps an insurance company. I simply can't have myself attached to an issue in any way. I have a major responsibility to my clients who are all high profile, and I can't afford to have any negative publicity. You seem like an intelligent enough young woman to appreciate that." "Yes, sir, I'm sorry. I'll leave tomorrow." "You don't have to leave so quickly," Dorothy said. But it's not the same firmness she had said everything else to me. "I don't want you to feel like we're throwing you out. You're a friend of my sister-in-law, and Dorothy's made her sister some promises," he added, eyeing her disapprovingly. "You can stay for a while, as long as you want. Just don't bring any of this mess to our doorstep. But from what it sounds like to me, my best advice is for you to return to where you call home and the people who care for you," Philip said. "Yes, sir," I replied in a small voice and started to crack. "You can report whatever you know to the proper authorities and let them know to take necessary action," he continued. "I'll assist you in doing that if you wish." "That's not why I came here. I don't care about any of that. I just wanted to find out what really happened to my mother. I wanted to see if she needed me." There were tears in my eyes as I spoke, but they defied gravity and remained firmly under my lids. "I see. Well, Dorothy knows that if you require any money for your return trip, I have everything I need. Thank you," I said. "Okay, I'm sorry for your trouble. You're a very nice young lady, and I'm sure that you'll regain your composure and go on and do something worthwhile with your life." "Oh, she's going to do a lot more than that," Dorothy said. "She's an exceptional young lady." "Yes, well, I'll just go up and get ready for dinner." He shot another, even sterner look at Dorothy. "Don't put yourself in a position where you're giving advice where you shouldn't be giving, Dorothy." "I think I know what I can and can't tell someone, Philip." "I certainly hope so," he said, his eyes full of warning. He glanced at me and then rose and left the room. "I'm sorry," I said. "I didn't want to make any trouble for you. Maybe I should leave right away. I can stay in a motel until I make travel arrangements." "Of course you won't do something like that. Don't you listen to him. He's just being Philip Livingston," she said, as if that explained it and justified it. Now I want to hear all the details. Go on, tell me everything from start to finish, she said, leaning toward me with her eyes wide. For a moment I had the feeling she was treating me and my problem as if it was all an episode of her favorite soap opera. Nevertheless, I related the events that occurred, leaving out my scene with Spike. When I was finished, she sighed deeply. Maybe Philip's right, dear. Maybe you should get with your own life. Not that I want to chase you away, but my mother is a part of my life, I said. Dorothy smiled and shook her head at me as if I'd said something ridiculous. Family can be such a burden. Look at what I have with Holly. Holly's a very happy person, and she has a lot of friends and knows a lot of wonderful people. I can't think of anyone who's been nicer to me. Oh, she has a heart of gold, especially when it comes to helping other people, but will she ever help herself? Not Holly. She's always like that, always off in a cloud. I tried to get her to be more substantial and do more with her life, but there's just only so much you can do, and then you've got to do like what Philip said, just go on with your own life. Philip does give the best advice. He always has. Sometimes I feel he's more like a father to me than a husband, she smiled. Are you all right, dear? Is there anything else that you want to tell me? I'm tired, I said. Dorothy was so wrapped up in herself, she would never hear anything that she didn't want to hear anyway, I thought. I'll just go up and rest for a while. Of course, take a whirlpool bubble bath, and suddenly the world will look much better to you. Believe me, it will. If I'm depressed, I just go to the spa and get a facial and take a mud bath and get a massage. What good is money if you don't use it to make yourself happy and drive away the gloomies? She added with a thin laugh. What she said reminded me of our shopping spree and all she spent on me. I was sure now that Philip would be very upset once he found out, despite what she had told me. I'd like you to bring that evening dress back to the store, Dorothy. I won't be needing it now, and you certainly will. Won't you go to some nicer affair back east? And just think how envious all the other young women will be when they see you in a designer dress. I stared at her, too tired to argue. She rang the bell, and in a few seconds later, Christina appeared at the doorway. Christina, will you please draw a bubble bath for Melanie? I can do that myself, I said. Please just do it, Christina, Dorothy emphasized firmly. Yes, Mrs. Livingston, Christina said and left to do it immediately. Really, dear, you have to let the servants do their work, otherwise, she laughed. Otherwise, we won't need servants, and they'll be without jobs, and Christina is someone who can't afford to be without a job. She has a flock of children to feed. Enjoy your bath. Alec and I will call you to dinner. She rose and stood there for a moment, gazing at me. I wish you were able to stay a while longer. I have so much to teach you, she said, and she shook her head with a twist of pity in her lips and left. You have so much to teach me, I thought. I gazed around this palace, in which two people shared wealth beyond my imagination, but it seemed like they were strangers to each other. I don't want to learn anything about getting the best table in the restaurant or how to keep a wrinkle off my face. No, I wanted to learn something much deeper. I wanted to learn where the truth belonged. If I stayed here 10 years more, I don't think I could get Dorothy Livingston to understand that. My legs felt like they had turned to stone beneath me when I rose and started for the stairs. It was another bright day outside, but inside my heart the sky was overcast with long, thick clouds of despair. As I approached my room, I heard Christina singing by the whirlpool tub. I put in some scented bubble bath for you, she said as she heard me enter. Thank you. She looked at me closely. Did you have a bad day? She asked. I started to shake my head, but my lips trembled and my chin quivered. I had to bite down to keep from myself sobbing. You poor girl, she said, coming to me. I couldn't help myself. I started to cry. She wrapped her arms around me quickly and held me to her, stroking my hair. There now. It's not all as bad as that, is it? Yes, it is. I wailed. My own mother refused to recognize me today. She ran off and left me with the relatives back east, and then she pretended to die so she would be rid of me forever, I blurted. Christina looked shocked, and for a moment she nodded slowly, her lips firm. Any woman who denies her own child must be in trouble, she declared. It's not natural, and it has to be painful for her. Do you think so? I asked, wiping my eyes. Oh, yes. When you become a mother, you'll understand, she said with a smile. Your child is part of you, always your baby. It hurts to see them grow up because you know they're going away from you, but that's different in a healthy kind of letting go. I'm sure your mother will contact you, she said, and squeezed my hand softly. She doesn't know where I'm staying. Then she expects you'll be back, Christina assured me. I don't know, I said, thinking about it. I wanted to share her optimism, to make everything terrible look small and insignificant, to believe that after the storm there was always a rainbow. But I had been disappointed so many times already. Have more faith, dear, she said. Relax, eat a good dinner, get a good night's rest tomorrow. Tomorrow will look a lot more promising. Her smile was like sunshine after the rain. I couldn't help but smile back. Thanks, I said. Your children are lucky to have such a good mother. Oh, I tell them that all the time, she joked. She had me laughing again, and for an instant I felt like my old self, full of sunshine and laughter. I enjoyed my whirlpool bath, soaked and relaxed and practiced meditating. I thought about Billy Maxwell overcoming his personal disaster, and I grew stronger. I was even hungry and looking forward to dinner. Right after I got dressed, there was a knock on my door, and Christina poked her head in. Everything all right? Yes, thank you, Christina. You have a call, she said. Just leave the bathroom as it is. I'll come back before I leave and take care of it all, she added, and closed the door so I would have privacy. I imagined it was Holly calling again. Maybe Dorothy had called and told her what Philip said. Holly would want me to fly back to New York and stay with her for a while. I had to admit it looked like the best idea. Hello? Melanie, Carrie said. What a surprise it was to hear from him. Carrie! I called Holly and got her sister's number. Are you all right? How was the trip? I spoke quickly, in minutes summarizing everything that happened, beginning with the near disaster at the airport. He listened silently until I was finished. I realized it was already late in the evening back east. Sounds like you had a terrible time from the day you left New York, he said. But how are you? I asked. Things aren't too good here, Melanie. I'm actually calling you from the hospital. The hospital? What happened to you? It's not me. Dad's back in the cardiac care unit. He had another heart attack. I think he brought it on himself this time, complaining about being restricted and insisting on doing more than he should. Oh, Carrie, I'm sorry. How's Aunt Sarah? You know Ma, she just keeps herself working so she won't think about it. And May? Not so good. She misses you a lot, he said, which is about half as much as I do. But I understand why you have to be away, he added quickly. I do miss you very much too, Carrie. What are you going to do now? I'm not sure yet. I'll call you as soon as I know, I promised. If you can, tell Uncle Jacob I hope he feels better. I will, and take care of yourself, Carrie. You don't have to do everything for everyone, I said, knowing him. He laughed. Look who's talking. Guess who I saw this morning at the hospital, he said. Grandma Olivia. She couldn't help herself. She had to ask if I heard from you. I told her I was calling you tonight, and she made me promise to give her the latest news. She's just hoping that her investment pays off and I stay forever, I said dryly. But you're gonna fool her, he said, and then he laughed nervously. Right now, I think the only person I've been fooling is myself, I moaned. I saw Kenneth in town this afternoon. I didn't speak to him. I saw that he was just driving away. He looked more straggly, if that's possible. I guess he's not taking very good care of himself. That's too bad. I was afraid that something like that would happen. We're all falling apart without you around here, Carrie said. Oh, Carrie. I don't know if I said it enough to be sure you would believe me, Melanie. But I love you, I really do. I believe you, Carrie, and I do miss you. Take care of yourself and don't fall in love with any movie stars, he kidded. You don't have to worry about that, I said, laughing. His goodbye was like a ribbon in the wind, lingering for a moment then drifting away at the end of the phone call. I held the receiver for a few minutes after the line had gone dead, as if by doing so I could hold on to Carrie's voice and warm my memories of him longer. When I went downstairs for dinner, I found the air even thicker than usual, if that was possible. Philip uttered barely a word, eating and staring ahead of us as if he was alone in the room. Dorothy tried to make small talk, telling me about new makeup and new skin creams that made her feel as soft as a baby. The food was a treat. It was a Mexican dish called fajita. Dorothy told me Mexican food was very popular in Los Angeles because there were so many of them here, and most of them are good cooks, she explained. After dinner, she wanted me to watch television with her. It seemed Philip rarely did anything with her at night. He usually had work to do in his office, or if he wasn't working, he was reading. Dorothy had said he hated television unless he was watching the financial reports, which she thought were abominably boring. I wondered what had brought these two people together to an altar to pledge their undying love until death did them part. It seemed the only romance in Dorothy's life was what she watched on her soap operas. I thought about the things Christina had said, and I thought about Carrie and May and Kenneth, and all the people who needed me back in Providence Town. Wasting any more time seemed sinful. I would do no more of it, I pledged. I'm going back to the Egyptian gardens one more time, I declared after dinner, and that brought animation into Philip's face. And I'm going to leave, and I'm not going to leave until I get some truthful answers. Tonight, Dorothy asked. Yes, right away, I said. Really, Melanie, do you think that's wise, especially at this time of night, Dorothy asked. She looked at Philip for support. I wouldn't suggest you do that, he said. It's not very intelligent in light of what you've already experienced. Sometimes we have to do what our hearts command us, more than what our minds demand, I replied. Inevitably, that leads to disaster, he retorted. I said nothing more, but they both understood I was going. I'd rather not have our limousine involved, Philip said as he rose from the table. I'll just call a cab. Philip, Dorothy said. I'm afraid I have to be firm on this, he told me. I understand. You've both been very kind, and I'm grateful for your hospitality. It's not the first time my sister-in-law has put me into a difficult situation, Philip remarked. Why don't you wait till morning, Melanie? Maybe then things, regardless of whether it's day or night, I don't want our car involved, Philip repeated, raising his voice. Dorothy sat back as if she'd been slapped. I'll just catch a cab, I said, rising. You don't catch a cab in Los Angeles. You call for one to pick you up, Philip said. I'll see that Alec does that for you. He marched out of the dining room. Please be careful, dear, Dorothy said. I will, my heart racing ahead of me. I hurried upstairs to get my purse. Actually, I was happy Spike wasn't going to be driving me anyway. I wasn't sure I could look at him in the face after what happened in his apartment. The cab was just pulling in when I stepped out of the house. I hurried to it and gave the driver the address and was off for what I decided to be my final attempt to approach Mommy. If I failed in the morning, I would go back east. The Egyptian gardens looked different in the evening, even seedier, if that was possible. Some of the lights in the lanterns along the walkway didn't work, and some of the lights on the building were dead as well. The shadows draped longer, deeper, and darker. The gate squeaked when I opened it and entered. Ahead of me, at the pool, 2 young men were talking and drinking something from tall glasses. They turned my way as I continued past them, and just as I reached the far corner and started towards Mommy's building, I saw a man step out of the doorway and pause to light a cigarette. The flame of his match danced on his face and hair for a moment, and I gasped. It was Archie Marlin. I'd recognize him anywhere. He still had short orange hair and skin that was milkweed, and freckles on his chin and forehead. Everyone back at Seawall always said he looked 10 years younger than he really was, although no one knew his exact age. No one knew very much about Archie Marlin. He never gave anyone a straight answer to questions about himself. He always joked or shrugged and said something silly. But he had filled Mommy with enough promises to sweep her off her feet and have her go with him. I held my breath as he walked past me, a small smile on his orange lips. He strolled down the walkway and went around the corner. I let out my breath, my heart pounding. I didn't want to face him just yet, if ever. But seeing him was the last and final assurance that that woman upstairs in the building was beyond a doubt my mother. My legs felt as thin and weak as a scarecrow's legs of straw as I entered the building and went to the elevator. When the doors opened, I stepped in quickly and pressed Mommy's floor. My heart seemed to have risen into the base of my throat. How horrible, I thought, how horrible that I should have to have all this trepidation about seeing my own mother. In moments I was standing in front of her doorway, hesitating, my fingers lingering over the buzzer. Finally I stabbed at it and waited. The door was thrust open and Mommy was standing there in her bathrobe, her hair unbrushed, no makeup on, her eyes glassy. She wobbled and spoke before she saw who it was. "What did you forget now, Richard?" she asked and then focused on me. Her expression froze, first with a glimmer of delight, then quickly with a look of annoyance. "You again," she said. "Mommy." She stared, and then she started to lean out further to look up and down the hallway. "I see I won't get rid of you so easily. Get in here," she ordered as she dragged me into her apartment. Mommy closed the door quickly behind me and gazed at me sourly and walked to the living room. She kept her back to me. "Why are you pretending not to know me, Mommy?" I asked and wiped the tears away quickly. "Because I don't know you," she said. "I don't know anyone from that life. I can't. I just can't," she said, slamming her fists to her thighs and spinning on me. "Why did you come here? How did you find me?" "Alice saw your picture in the catalog and sent it to me. I brought it to Kenneth and he studied it and felt sure it was you. Then he called his friend in Boston and they found you." "Kenneth?" She relaxed her lips in a tiny smile. And then, realizing what she had done, drove the anger hard look back into her eyes. "I don't know anyone named Kenneth except Ken Peters from ICM. You've got to go back," she said. Tell them I'm not who you thought I was, and... But why, Mommy? "It's better for everyone all around," she said. She folded her arms under her breasts and stiffened her shoulders like one of Kenneth's statues, firming up her resolve. I just started to cry more openly. "Stop it," she said. "Don't you see? You'll mess everything up, ruin my chances just when I was starting to get someplace. I might have a good part in a movie and another, better modeling job. I'm meeting important people, and just when it's finally happening, you pop out of nowhere and nearly sink my boat. I don't understand, Mommy." I took a deep breath. "How did you do this? You had everyone back at home believing you died. There was a body. You're buried in the family plot back in Providencetown." She laughed and went into an imitation ivory cigarette on the yellowish-brown coffee table and took out a cigarette. "You mean Olivia Logan permitted the poor corpse to be deposited in her precious family ground, even though she believed it was me. She laughed again and found a match and lit her cigarette. Then she fell back into the worn cotton print easy chair and stared at me and puffed away. "You look good," she said. "You filled out nicely. Jacob didn't throw you out in the street, I guess." "He's very sick, Mommy. He had a heart attack and nearly died. Now he's back in the hospital." "Doesn't surprise me. He's too much like his mother to enjoy life and not to let anyone else enjoy it. Probably finally soured his own heart." She took a deep breath and shook her head and gazed through the sliding glass door balcony. "I can't have a daughter your age," she said. "I wouldn't get a decent job in this town." "Why not?" "It's just the way it is. Young people get everything here, especially women. Look, you don't belong with me, honey. I'm not a good mother. I never was and I never will be. It's just not in my nature." "Why not?" I asked. Because I'm too self-centered." Chester was right about that. Don't you remember? It was always Chester who did the important things for you, not me. And you spent most of your childhood next door with Arlene and George. "Papa George died, Mommy," I said softly. "Did he?" She nodded. "He was pretty sick when I left. I didn't think it would be too much longer." "You see," she said, snapping her head back. "You see how short life is, how quickly your chance to do something fades? I won't get a second chance out here, Melanie. This is it for me. That's why I did what Archie suggested when the accident happened." "Archie was really in an accident," she said, waving her cigarette. "He was returning from a party at a bar where there was supposed to be a gathering of producers and agents. He had one of his younger clients with him. The girl was really young, but everyone fooled, except Archie, of course. Anyway, he had me lend her my identification for the night. On the way back, Richard, as you know, he's called now, lost control of the car, and as soon as it crashed, it caught fire. He was thrown, but the girl in was killed. When the police found the body, my identification, Archie and I discussed it and decided it would be better if I took advantage of it. So I took on my new identity. I'm Gina Simon. Gina Simon, do you hear? Everyone here thinks I'm years younger than I am," she added in defense. "I can't get anywhere unless I'm this young. So I did it." "Don't look at me like that," she fired. "I knew you were doing well and you were with family. It wasn't as if I left you stranded somewhere." "Family?" I said, my face twisting with rage. "You left me with family that you knew disliked you." "Yes, but you're not me," Mommy said. "I figured in time they would see that and not punish you for being my daughter. And they were all well off, even Jacob." "Not anymore. His business is struggling, and he's very sick." "You can't live with me. Why did you come here? How can I take you in? Go back and wait till I get established and make a lot of money, and then I'll send for you," she promised. "You've got to go before anyone realizes who you are." "Where are you staying?" she asked quickly, realizing there might be people who already knew. "I'm staying with Holly Brooks's sister, Dorothy Livingston, but not after tonight," I said. "Holly Brooks, I know that name. She's a friend of Kenneth's." Oh yeah. Is she living with him?" "No, she lives in New York City. She's been very nice. She helped me get here." "And this Dorothy, what does she know about us?" "Just what I've told her, how you pretended to be someone you didn't know." "Good. Go back and tell her that you made a mistake, and then go back to Jacob and Sarah." "I can't go back to Jacob and Sarah. If I go back, I have to live with Grandma Olivia." "Olivia, why?" she asked. I sat on the sofa and began to tell her the story of my discoveries, and that I knew that my mother's father was Judge Childs. I finally understood why Kenneth and his father don't get along. He blames his father for losing you, I said. Mommy smiled. Kenneth, she said softly, reminiscing. I suppose if things had been different, he and I would have been married. You don't know how handsome he was, and bright. All my girlfriends were crazy about him. He was always different, always exciting to be with. Her smile faded, but when I learned the truth and brought it to him, it was as if it hit him like a sledgehammer. They're all so prim and proper on the outside, the blue bloods who made me feel inferior. I was the poor, discarded little girl, the waif living in Olivia's kindness and generosity. How she continually reminded me of it. She took me in just to reduce the embarrassment, but she hated every moment I was there. I won Chester away from her, and she hated me forever. Was she smiling at my funeral? I wish I had been there just to watch the hypocrites, Mommy said, and puffed on her cigarette violently. No, she wasn't smiling. She was dignified. It was a nice funeral. Kenneth was there too. Poor Kenneth. Was he upset? Yes. She sat back pleased. It's not bad to bury yourself once, especially when you're burying the ugly past too. She stared blankly at me. But that's all gone 6 feet under, Melanie. You can't dig me up. It's not fair. I've finally thrown off the chains and the weight of my past. She gazed around. This is just temporary. After my next jobs, I'll be living in a plush condo, maybe in Brentwood, Archie assures me, she said. I looked down, my heart so heavy I thought it might fall out of my chest. Why does Olivia want you to move in with her now? Because Uncle Jacob's so sick, and I wanted to live with Kenneth since he's really my uncle, but she says that'll only stir up gossip. Oh, she's right about that. Olivia knows her territory. Maybe it's not a bad idea anyway. It's a beautiful home. I did enjoy living there, if she wasn't breathing down my neck or screaming at me. She wants to find the proper school for me. And I have an inheritance from Grandma Belinda's half of the Gordon fortune. That's great. So you should go back, and quickly. But it's not the money I want, or a snobby girl's school, Mommy. Olivia isn't my mother. She's not even my real grandmother. I'm afraid to live with her, afraid that she'll make my life as miserable as she made yours. She wasn't completely at fault. I brought a lot of it on myself, Mommy confessed. I was angry at them, all of them, and I wanted them to pay for my unhappiness. They'll always see you when they look at me, I said. Olivia does, no matter what she tells me or Uncle Jacob. Even Kenneth, I added, and she perked up. Oh? He had made me model for him just the way that you used to, I said. She widened her eyes. Really? And you did it? Yes. He created a wonderful new piece of a sculpture. He says it's his greatest work, Neptune's daughter. But the face on the sculpture is more your face than it is mine, I told her. I saw that she liked that. Stand up, she asked suddenly, and I did so. You really did fill out. You're very attractive. Kenneth doesn't miss much. She thought again for a moment. Didn't you like it back there? Did you meet anyone nice? Carrie's nice, very nice. I miss him and I love May. But I miss you, Mommy. I don't like being alone. It's not fair. She nodded and crushed her cigarette. It didn't bother me to leave you, to lie to you, she said. Maybe not as much as you would have liked it to have bothered me, but it did. You understand? I nodded, even though I really didn't. I had to listen to Archie. He had much more experience with this. Please let me stay with you, Mommy. She gazed at me and smiled. You're always a sobering influence on me, weren't you, Melanie? When I strayed at Frankie's bar and grill too long, in Sewell and came home, I would take one look at your face and feel so damn guilty. I lost my buzz in an instant. I hated you for that, she admitted. But later I would love you for it, as much as I could love any child, I suppose. She straightened up. I don't have very much hair yet, she said. It's not even as deep as a bucket compared to what Olivia has and can offer you. I don't care about that, Mommy. I should be with you. You can't be with me, she whined. I can't have a daughter your age. I thought quickly, remembering what her friend Sandy had thought. I could be your younger sister. You told people you had one, I suggested quickly. How do you know that? I met someone here the first time I came. Her name was Sandy, and she thought I was your younger sister, surprising you, I said. She would. She smiled and looked at me. We do look like sisters, I mean. I look young enough to be your sister, don't I? Yes, Mommy, you do. See? She pounced, jabbing her forefinger at me. That's just the problem. You can't call me Mommy. A younger sister doesn't call her older sister Mommy, does she? I won't. You'll forget. I won't, I insisted. She relaxed as she thought about my suggestion. If I had a younger sister here, it would certainly make everyone believe me even more, she thought out loud. That's right, it would, I said, nodding. You can call me Sis or Gina. You can even forget and call me Haley. I never did, Mommy. Mommy? Well, there's no one here right now, I said quickly. Archie's not going to like this. He'll be furious with me, she said with a shake of her head. He has no right to be furious with me. You've done everything he wanted, haven't you? Yes, I have, she said. She stared at me and then she smiled. He won't be unhappy when I tell him another prime client anyway, she said. Another prime client? You, silly. You're beautiful. You can become a model and an actress too. We'll tell everyone I called you here to develop your career just like me. Then we really will be sisters, she exclaimed. Maybe we'll even do something together. I shook my head. I could never. Sure you could. It's so easy. You smile when they want and you bat your eyelashes when you have to, and before you know it, you have an assignment and they're paying you hundreds of dollars an hour just to pose. I don't know if I can do that, I said, recalling what I had learned from Spike already in his business. Believe me, you can do it, she said. Okay, you can have the second bedroom and we'll try it. If it doesn't work out, you have to promise you'll return to Cape and go to school. Well, you wanted to be with me, and this is how you can be with me. Make up your mind. I stood there speechless for a moment. Could I really turn down the chance to be with Mommy again? To wait for the perfect opportunity to find out who my father was? But before I had the chance to think about her suggestion, we heard the doorbell. Who the hell is that so early? She muttered and rose to the door. It was Sandy Glee. I saw you, she sang, past Mommy at me. I saw you on the patio coming up the walkway. So, Gina, aren't you going to introduce me to your surprise? Melanie, Mommy said, turning towards me. You can see why you can't keep secrets here. Everyone's a snoop. This is my kid sister, she said, eyeing me warily. I knew it, Sandy remarked with a clap of her slender hands. She's coming to stay with me for a while to try her luck in Hollywood, like the rest of us nitwits. Richard's going to represent her too? Yep. Good. Welcome to the fight, Sandy said. I'm having a few people over tomorrow night for a potluck dinner. If you want to introduce her around, Sandy said. About 7. We'll be there, Mommy promised. See you later, sis, Sandy said, waving. She left the apartment and Mommy spun around on me with a wide smile on her face. It worked. I knew it. I do look old enough to be your sister. In this town, everyone believes everyone else's lies. It's a perfect place for people who hate the truth. Welcome home, Melanie, she said sincerely. I can finally throw my arms around you. Even as she hugged me, giving me affection, that I so desperately needed, I had to wonder what I had gotten myself into.